Welcome to the 16th edition of the Panama Interview series, where we discuss topics regarding foreign direct investment in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are streaming live from the capital city of the Republic of Panama. The Panama Interview series is produced by V.C Legal and Compliance Consulting, LLC, a Miami domiciled limited liability corporation with offices in downtown Miami and Panama City, Panama. We provide international, commercial, and transactional legal and regulatory compliance advice and related services to manufacturers and brand owners that seek to boost profit and hedge domestic risk through international distribution in the USA and in Latin America and the Caribbean. My name is Anthony Robinson, and I am the managing member of V.C Legal and Compliance Consulting. In this edition of the Panama Interview series, we will discuss the compliance requirements for exporting seafood from Latin America to the USA. To that end, we are honored to have as our guests this afternoon, Scott Zimmerman, the CEO of Safety Quality Seafood Associates, LLC, and Julio Maltez, the founder and CEO of V.C Products, Inc., otherwise known as Ocean Gourmet. We have several topics to cover over 60 minutes. Accordingly, please put your questions in the chat, and I will submit them to our guests afterwards. Scott, Julio, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're just going to jump right in. Scott, tell us a little bit about the mission of Safety Quality Seafood Associates and the services that your company provides.
Well, thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak with you and your associates here today, Anthony. Safe Quality Seafood Associates is a small shop consultancy here in Miami, Florida. We're basically a third-party entity that assists with quality assurance and quality control specific to seafood products. So we don't work with blueberries and poultry. We work with seafood from both a regulatory and a third-party standard compliance perspective. So we're working on writing HACCP programs and assisting with training facilities and implementing HACCP, but we're also working with finished products as well to determine their disposition, whether it's a quality or food safety related issue. So we've been working in this space for a decade now as a small shop consultancy, and really enjoying working with the seafood industry, especially in Latin America, because we're here in Miami. Yo hablo un poco español, pero suficiente para la auditoría, and it's a great opportunity to be here today. So thank you.
And you've had on the ground experience with companies in Latin America where you've traveled to the companies and done investigations and on-site work. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and I actually just bought a new tool for that. It's a luminometer, where I'm able to do swabbing of food contact surfaces for the presence of active proteins, salmonella, listeria, and some other bad bugs. But I also work through those food safety programs, through their GMPs, through their HACCPs and HACCP programs and critical control points to make sure that they're monitoring those steps in the process where a potential hazard could occur from the eyes of FDA's perspective. So in order for those companies to meet those equivalency requirements, they need to be audited and vetted to make sure that they're controlling the hazards that are most likely to occur.
Perfect.
Most of my audits are in Central and South America, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama. I've had the opportunity to visit Panama on several occasions, so it's a great country, and I look forward to doing some more work over there.
Well, thanks. We're honored to have you with us. Julio, tell us a little bit about V.C Products and your mission and services.
Oh, first of all, thank you, Anthony. Hi, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for having me here. V.C Products, so it's a company basically founded by me with my family. And V.C. Product is a distributor of Ocean Gourmet, which is a very well-known brand locally in Panama. And we do also some private labeling for supermarkets chains all over Panama. We have done in the past some export, basically a lot of export, mainly to Miami, as you mentioned before, uh, fresh products as well as frozen. So basically, we know pretty well everything that is going on currently in this seafood business. Um, my main goal currently, and basically that's what we are looking for on the export area. Um, we wanted to export a brand. I think that that's the future currently. The future is going to be exporting finished products. Panama is known, as you mentioned before, not for seafood as its main export um, commodity. Uh, but I think that in the future we will start seeing more finished products, value-added products being exported from Panama, and quite less on raw material, which is currently what he has been leading all the exporting in the past. Because of COVID and this whole new thing that is going on right now, I think that the future is going to be value-added,
Give us,
basically.
give us a quick example of some of your value-added product, because I know you have some good ideas and some good products. I've tried some of them myself.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, we actually in all this pandemic, we call it pandemic developments. uh, we are doing it right now. We already start selling smoked tuna carpaccio, smoked octopus carpaccio, smoked shrimp carpaccio. We have a very good brand, a very good differentiation of seafood chorizo as well, like sausages, salmon sausages, um, uh, yellowfin tuna sausages, um, seafood mix sausages, smoked salmon dip, smoked tuna dip. Those all these develops that we have been working on, and right now it's being launched to the supermarkets, expecting to be like this new thing in this coming year. We know that November and December is not our main month, our main sales, but we have to be out in the market now. So to taking advantage for the next year, January and February, which is gonna be when we hit it hard and we will try to make a statement in the seafood industry locally.
Okay. Well, before we jump into the topic of conversation today, which is regulatory compliance, FDA compliance requirements for exporting to the USA in the seafood industry, let's set the economic context in Latin America within which exports of seafood products are generated. Literature reviews establish that historically most of the fish products in the region have been concentrated in fish meal produced by large caches of small pelagic fish, such as forage anchovies, sardines, shad, or musk bunker, or any of the larger predatory fish that feed on these types of forage fish, like swordfish, tuna, mackerel, and shark. In the upwelling areas or those coastal areas where deep cold water rises toward the surface off Peru and Chile. But in recent decades, Latin American fisheries or fishery production has not only increased on an ongoing basis, but is also diversified, and its focus has shifted towards fish production for human consumption rather than just fish meal. And trading with the United States, the European Union, and Japan has been a focus. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations reports that Latin America and the Caribbean is currently a net fish exporter. In 2019, the FAO projected that by 2030, fish exports for Latin America will increase by 29% to 5.1 million tons. The prevailing research on the relationship between Latin American fishery exports and economic growth has found empirical evidence that fishery exports act as a growth engine for developing countries. So ergo, our topic today, seafood exports will play an important role in the post-pandemic economic recovery of the region. And as the U.S. is arguably the region's most important trade partner, a successful recovery will depend meaningfully on a keen understanding of the FDA compliance requirements by fishery companies within the region. So Julio, let's talk about Panama as a case study. What is the current status of the seafood industry in the Republic of Panama? I know that's a wide open question, but I mean, the industry has gone through changes within the last 30 years. Is that correct? Maybe you could speak to some of those changes.
Oh yes. Basically, we know that um, all these changes. Actually, there is a fluctuation of prices, kind of crazy currently. We have our beta. I don't know how do you translate it, Anthony. The beta in English is the time when we can catch shrimps.
Oh,
Uh,
the high season, or the season where fishing is prohibited
prohibit
for
exactly.
sustainability purposes.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, we just passed the second one this year, and you know that together with that there is a fluctuation of prices. I know for a fact that exports has been increasing, but at the same time, local sales are increasing.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because um, when the pandemic happened, companies realized that they couldn't export, they couldn't basically do nothing, and the only market the way they were able to sell is local.
Mm-hmm.
So seafood company wants to play in, like says, in both waters. Now they realize that they cannot rely just on exporting. They cannot just realize in local sales. So that is what's going on right now. I believe that the price is gonna drop by the end of the year, and it will continue dropping the next year. And I know that it's going to be a sort of a holdback on economic. That's a fact. Actually, it's happening right now.
Right.
It's happening right now globally, not just Panama, globally. Uh, and that is going to be a drop in prices for local fishermen and for importers as us. That's going to be a drop in. Actually, we already know that containers arriving on December, they come with lower prices.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. That's a fact. It's going to be. It's happening right now. So I believe that we need to know how to play this game in order to succeed. Basically, what I'm saying that we have to be playing both ways. We have to export, we have to hit the local market, and we have to pay attention on value added products.
Okay. Let's take a quick step back and just look at, the export panorama for Panama, within which, the seafood industry operates. So where does Panama export on 2020 numbers? Um, and you can see that, there's a variety of countries and partners, but the U.S. is arguably, our most important partner there. What are we exporting? Um, you can see as far as food exports, uh, bananas are number one, but seafood products are after bananas as far as Panamanian exports uh, are concerned. Um, this is a chart that Apex put together that shows us how within the food sector, how exports are ranked, and then a year-over-year comparison from 21 to 22 in each line item. And you can see camarón, shrimp, has really
Yes.
been the most successful food export out of all of these opportunities with 113% growth, right? So that's maybe you could speak to that, Julio. Why such a large and
Increase.
increase year over year of shrimp?
To be honest, I don't think it is the main market for this shrimp is gonna be US.
Mm-hmm.
It is gonna be Asia, and it's mainly farm raised shrimp, not wild caught.
Okay.
Basically, what it is that in pandemic, there will be there was a lack of shrimp, and now they are ramping up their production.
Mm-hmm.
Some other countries couldn't export. Some others probably they are affected by the war in Europe, and they cannot supply for the regular suppliers. And there is an opportunity for Latin America on that,
So there's
which
a
is
little bit of a rebound function going on here from in the post-COVID recovery, uh,
exactly,
uh,
exactly.
which is there's an opportunity there. Why would pescado y filete de pescado? Why would fish fillets be going down with respect to as an export from Panama
Mm,
year over year?
it is going down, but it usually fluctuates in that number. It's
Mm,
not really affected. It is basically the same.
right.
It goes up 2 or 3 points up, goes down 2 or 3 points down. But if you go back, I think it's right there. It's right there.
Hmm. So that's within the normal variation of
Uh,
those.
ex- exactly, exactly.
Uh-huh. So this slide tells us a little bit about where the non-fillet frozen fish, which is, if I'm not mistaken, Julio, the biggest category of fish exports. Is that, traditionally, historically, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Non-fillet frozen fish, if
Uh
we go
huh.
back, it has been historically a big category of seafood
Exactly,
exports for Panama.
exactly, exactly.
So this,
Non-fillet.
mhm,
First non-fillet, then fillets, and one of the main species that I think is being exported right now is tilapia. Panama
mhm,
is the one of the few places that you can get wild caught tilapia, and you know that wild caught products have a little bit extra value besides all the farm raised,
mhm,
just because it's wild, it's not artificially feed, no antibiotics are included in the production. So I think that the main export right there is tilapia. Then it's going to be all the other fishes like corvina, mahi mahi. This a couple of months ago we have a large production of yellowfin tuna loins.
mhm.
So that's another main product that is being exported. That's kind of product is their main market is the U.S.
And speak a little bit about frozen compared to non-frozen, non-fillet seafood products, because it seems like frozen has more exports than non-frozen. Why would that be?
Yeah, um, the way it works is that all the non-frozen fresh seafood is flown by air to Miami.
Hmm.
Uh, so obviously the prices are higher because of the freight, and the volume is lower, and this is a business that have to be done in daily wises. Prices goes up, goes down, and is delivered directly to restaurant, food service, mainly food service and catering. In the other side of the spectrum is the frozen seafood, which is delivered to large distributors, main probably as large supermarket chain, which obviously the capacity of processing is a little bit large. No, not little bit. A lot larger than fresh products.
Okay.
We have done both. Uh, the fresh seafood, I don't recommend that kind of business. It's kind of frustrating and a lot of involvement day and night on the on that kind of uh, business.
Well,
You
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
sorry?
sorry. No, go ahead.
No.
Continue.
Well, yes. It's a daily basis sales.
Mhm.
And for example, you get 30,000 pounds of mahi mahi, then you are able to sell fresh 5,000 or 10,000. Then what you do with the rest? You have to frozen,
Yeah.
and then you have to look for somebody else to buy it, and they collect it and fill up a container. So that's why you see big volumes of frozen, small volumes on fresh.
Interesting to me was that this is where the exports for non-fillet fresh fish are going. 94% to the United States, whereas we just saw that the frozen is within the region, uh, a good deal, a good portion of it. Why?
Exactly.
So I mean, you spoke to that. I don't want to belabor the point, but I thought that was interesting. You know, I'd like to make the segue a little bit to Law 24 here in Panama, Julio, because
Mhm.
I think it's one. The law was passed recently, back in March of 21. The law regulates the activities of fishing, aquaculture, and activities related to fish. A good part of it is about sustainability, but another focus of the law is to um, ensure that fishing concerns within the country are operating in accordance with international standards and the latest technologies. Really important, obviously. I'm interested in how this is affecting your business and your competitors in Panama.
Well, yes, actually, me as BC product Ocean Gourmet, we knew already that this is gonna that's something that's gonna happen, and that's something that actually it will get tighter in the future. One of the main complaints of the international institutions is the security or the sustainability of the catching, or how it's being catch all the fish or the seafood products here in Panama. And obviously, that is going to minimize the catching volume, because the restrictions of how it's been fishing by net now have to be by hooks, so the volume is going to drop down. But that's something that's going to happen. I mean, we have to deal with it. This is not something new. Actually, we support. I don't know, Anthony, if you know this organization, Marviva.
Mm-hmm.
We support Marviva. We have a production line of ceviche, and one of our labels says not o libre de tiburón, which is shark free.
Uh-huh.
Locally, one of the main ways to sell shark is through ceviche.
Mm.
They label it like Corvina ceviche, but it's shark.
Okay.
So we as a company knew, because I saw it myself, that when they catch the sharks, they take out the fins and they threw back the shark alive.
Uh-huh.
So when I saw that, I mean, that's horrible. That's horrible for the environment. It's horrible for us. It's horrible for everybody. It's going to ruin our ecosystem. So we step ahead and support that kind of movement. Uh, uh, and that's something that's culturally. Us as a plant and fishermen have to understand that we have to take care of our uh, sea, of our ocean.
Yeah.
So the main reason or how it is affect us in the business is just about volume, and that's why I always insist of the way we as a plant have to make business mainly to the US or the Caribbean is going through or experiencing or inventing something with value added. That's
Hmm.
that's that's our main goal, or the main way that company should see exports, not as a raw material exporters,
Hmm.
mainly as a finished products, as Scott mentioned before. He
Hmm.
have done some advices on finished products, and we should be focusing on that finished products, value added products, to add value. The word said to add value to our seafood, because the otherwise it can be replaced very easily. And Panama is a country, it's not cheap, it's not easy to produce, and it's gonna be it's easy for Costa Rica or Peru to beat us on prices. Very easy. So the only way that we can make business in the long run is gonna be value added. That's my personal opinion.
Right. Let
And
me
and
ask,
uh, what?
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And companies that doesn't see it this way is a dead sentence. To me, it's a dead sentence.
Right.
If you export shrimp, well, try breaded, for example. If you do, I don't know, if you do whole fish, or try something else. Try to add value to your product, because then it's going to be a moment that is going to be a cheaper place that is going to beat you with pricing, and you are going to be out of the business. That's going to happen sooner or later. It's going to come. That's for sure.
No, I mean that's important what you're saying, and I wanted to get your thoughts also on the regulatory focus of Law 2204, because it's a lot of it is domestic sustainability, and that over exportation are trying to address that issue, but some of it, part of the focus of the law is to raise the regulatory compliance standards of operators in the industry. Um, I mean, do you see that as an area of where value can be added? I mean, do you see a need for an increase in regulatory compliance, food safety compliance in the industry within Panama?
Sure, sure. We have to. In otherwise, we can compete. We have to. That's not even an option.
Right.
The problem is if this fisherman is willing to do it, on how or how they're going to be approaching to those regulations.
Hmm.
We have to enforce them. We as a plant have to enforce them. um, but that is our fight, because
Hmm.
usually plants own some boats, but not all of them. And to make the volume, you have to buy for independent fishermen,
Hmm.
and those independent fishermen, that's our main problem right there.
Well, Well, there is. This is a good segue to get in the heart of what we are talking about today. Which, what are the compliance requirements for exporting to seafood to the U.S.? You know, if to me the opportunity of Law 204 is for the industry to you know, embrace the compliance requirements of the U.S. and make that the baseline uniform standard for all players. To engage experts to come in and educate about where the priorities of FDA, so that there's a uniform level of compliance, which will make our products more attractive to the U.S. In the market. So I want to Scott, you've been sitting there patiently as we've been talking about market stuff, but we're just going to jump into it. I mean, what are the special requirements for imported products and foreign supplier verification programs?
So there's a lot of different moving parts here, but I think the one word that I would kind of focus on is equivalency. Whether it's having to do with national oceanic and atmospheric administrations, the National Marine Fisheries Service, whether it's customs, whether it's FDA or Fish and Wildlife Service. We have laws here in the United States that we apply to domestic production, and those equivalent level of laws need to be met overseas for those products intended for human or animal consumption here in the United States. And so when we talk about the Food Safety Modernization Act, when we talk about the evolution and the modernization of food safety standards here in the United States, we're looking at an upgrade in those requirements for importers. We're looking at upgrades for requirements for producers. And really anybody in the food supply chain that's maintaining ownership of that product or is considered the importer of record or the international fisheries permit holder, they need to have full traceability of all key data elements at different critical tracking events that are going to show the FDA through a sortable spreadsheet that they know where the product has been. They have full traceability on how those products were produced, and that the controls in that processing plant are equivalent to those controls that the FDA is recommending through their guidance. So, I don't know if you want to start with, meeting the HACCP requirements or the differences between foreign supplier verification and those requirements that already exist for seafood importers in the United States. But each one of these topics, we could spend at least 5 minutes on each of them if you like.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we should do is spend. I mean, we don't have enough time to give it justice and to go into it, but we had just as an introduction and a way as a jumping board for future conversations. Maybe we spend a little bit on each. So then maybe you could talk about the proposed food traceability rule and how it will impact exporters of seafood products.
Okay, so the deal with the proposed traceability rule, which is pretty much going to become regulation this coming November, but that it's not going to bear its teeth until 2025. The deal with that is that in a sortable spreadsheet, the FDA is going to require fishing vessels, buyer information, seafood processors information, distributors, retailers to maintain full traceability on any product, any seafood product that's on the food traceability list. So what's on the food traceability list? Every seafood product that you could think of is on that list right now. Okay, there is no exempted product when it comes to seafood. All of it is required full traceability. So we're looking at, importers information, quantity, a lot of the information that the supply chain already has. But now it's a matter of making sure that the next entity in the chain of custody is capturing that information, and then it's then packaged and passed on all the way to the retailer. So, certain entities, the retailer is not going to need the shipping information because the FDA realizes that in some instances there's proprietary and information that they can't pass along. But for example, the buyer of the product is going to have to receive key data elements from the receiving of that product and the shipping of that product. And that's going to need to then be sent on to the next entity in the supply chain. So there's documents that detail those specific data points, those key data elements that are going to need to be captured and tracked along in the seafood supply chain, so that information is going to be available in a sortable Excel spreadsheet, for example, or other similar sortable spreadsheet that the FDA will be able to use in order to conduct a traceability and essentially recall exercise to determine the root cause of the problem. So, a lot of what FDA is trying to achieve there has a lot of this time been being achieved through the Seafood Import Monitoring Program, although that's only a certain number of products that are required to comply with that regulation under the U.S. Department of Commerce and the National Marine Fisheries Service. Also, the seafood industry has been kind of stepping up their game through third-party certification, which also requires full traceability. But the FDA has already, to date, anybody that's importing product requires one step forward, one step backwards traceability. But now the devil's in the details when it comes to traceability, and that's where the concentration for industry needs to be on what the FDA defines as a key data element and what they define as a critical tracking event. And those processors and other entities, distributors and others, how they currently capture that data and whether or not they're capturing the full set of data that's going to determine their ability to comply. And like I said, the teeth will come out in 2025.
Okay. Well, let's talk. This is a good segue to talk about FDA actions and enforcement and how they impact exporters of seafood products.
Before I talk about that, I want to just mention the differences between what importers in the United States require in terms of data and what importers that fall under the Food Safety Modernization Act's Foreign Supplier Verification Program. We started hearing a lot more about FSVP. Well, the seafood industry is exempt from FSVP. That is only if you are able to comply with the existing regulation for seafood importers here in the United States. And I would just say that the differences are pretty obvious in that with foreign supplier verification, the importer themselves has to do a written hazard analysis. Okay, whereas the seafood importer here in the United States, all they have to do is maintain a copy of a safety specification, a written verification program, as well as an affirmative step, which could be to maintain a copy of the HACCP plan from the packer, let's say Panama, and a copy of a letter of guarantee from the packer in Panama, for example, that states that they're compliant with all the U.S. laws. Whereas the foreign supplier verification, it's more of a risk assessment that has to be conducted by the importer. And then there needs to be written evidence that any hazards that have been identified, especially those with, like you were talking about earlier, the increase in the number of value-added and ready-to-eat products. Those are considered high risk in the eyes of FDA because they're considered, there's no kill step that's involved with consuming a product like that. And so there needs to be evidence of a audit that was conducted that was equivalent to the FDA's regulatory requirements under CFR 123 and 117 for those parts of the preventive control rule that do apply. So the modernization that has occurred with most other industries, food producing industries, only partial parts of that are required by the FDA to be implemented by seafood manufacturers. But the devil's in the details there, because if you are not compliant, you can be subject to enforcement action as the product hits our port, whether it's placing the product on hold, collecting samples in kind of a compliance audit, a compliance sampling for specific shipments and entries that are coming here, to placing those manufacturers, those products, and even entire countries can be placed on import alert or DWPE, detention without physical examination, which is a real pain in the butt to get off that bad list. Okay, it's well, it's a process between creating lab evidence and producing programs that in the eyes of FDA are considered equivalent, and to show that those programs have been implemented. It's one thing to say this is our food safety program. It's another thing to show that it's been effectively implemented, writing up a root cause analysis and corrective actions to make sure that that adulteration that occurred that's associated with the shipment of the product that you sent here is no longer going to happen. So working with the FDA can be a difficult process. They have tight deadlines. And if you don't meet them, they're not going to come back to the table. I was just working with a client today that was asking me to assist with a reconditioning of a product that had evidence of filth, insects, and they wanted to reprocess blocks and make it into 2-pound bags of IQF, but their deadline's tomorrow. And I said, I'm not going to write you a reconditioning plan. I'm not going to stop everything that I'm doing and write your reconditioning plan when you don't have all your ducks in line. So best of luck. And now they're going to have to export. They had originally sent a reconditioning plan that wasn't up to snuff because it didn't talk about the products, the total volume of product that they were going to reproduce, and then how many samples that they were going to take as a result of the new lots that they were going to create. They just said, we're going to thaw out the blocks, we're going to wash it in water, and we're going to make 2-pound bags of IQF shrimp out of it. And the FDA said, not on my watch. You need a detailed plan on how you're going to go about producing a product like this. You need a sampling plan. You need to show us the HACCP plan of the facility that's reproducing those products. And, so, there's a lot of details out there that the FDA has available for industry to receive guidance from FDA. But if you don't do your homework, your programs are not going to be up to snuff.
Let me ask you a question, Scott. When you get caught in
the FDA expecting to either get off import alert or recondition products.
Scott, let me ask you a question. So when you get into the enforcement situation with FDA, is that information private or public?
It's if you're in an enforcement situation with FDA, that is it's accessible through a number of ways. Through ITACs, you can access information on the specific entry. You can access information through FDA's data dashboard, Freedom of Information Act, data mining. There's a wide variety of ways that I dig up dirty laundry on on companies.
This is
I used to do that as a compliance person for a big distributor here in the United States.
this is some slides from a presentation, and it was actually a webinar that I gave a couple of months ago, and I took some snapshots of the FDA data dashboard just to illustrate that it's all public information, all the enforcement action, all the compliance enforcement activity. It can be found on the dashboard. Maybe you can speak to some of the information that's provided on the dashboard generally. I mean, this is one particular Panamanian company that's had some issues in the past, and inspection information is all on the dashboard. This is for detailed information about when inspections were made and the outcomes of inspections. This is just an example, a case study of driving home the fact that it isn't really important to get in front of this because this information is all public.
Yes, and it's also generated as you showed over a specific time period, whether they were inspections or recalls or warning letters or placement on DWP. There's a history, and actually I'm not going to name any names here, but there was recently a recall for salmonella associated with raw fish here in the United States. Product that was intended to be consumed raw. And so I dug up the data dashboard output on that company and noticed that there were several voluntary actions notified on that as a result of those inspections that occurred, which started in 2010. And I noticed that a lot of the non-conformities, let's say, or observations that were made by FDA could be associated with the root cause of why that product had salmonella. Now, obviously, the salmonella could have come from anywhere. It could have come in on the product from the country of origin, or it could have occurred at retail. But it was most likely, I believe they picked it up off of a food contact surface at this packing plant, which had citations in the past for sanitation issues. So, and non-compliance with HACCP related control strategies. So yeah, I mean, it's a very detailed, very useful report that can be generated through the data dashboard. It's actually something through foreign supplier verification programs. That's one of the documents that an importer here in the United States would generate in their process of evaluating a supplier from overseas that's packing product for them. And so it's a very useful tool.
Right. Would it be accurate to say also that the difficult part about this regulatory compliance is understanding the enforcement priorities of FDA, right? Which may change from over time and may change from administration to administration. I mean, there's one thing to understand the laws and the regulations of FDA, but it's another thing to understand the priorities today that you're going to face when you're trying to export.
So the priorities are ready-to-eat products that have a history of non-compliance from countries and packers that have histories of non-compliance. So right now we're seeing a huge uptick in the amount of warning letters, in the number of import alerts that are being issued for products like tahini or like produce. Anything considered ready to eat, crackers and stuff like this, cookies. And we're also seeing a number of compliance actions being taken on importers that have consistently proven, or even just on a one-off scenario, are proving to have complete disregard for the FDA's regulations. That's a fast track to get on the import alert list. And so, again, your name is being dragged through the mud by FDA and your competitors, because they know you're up there, that you're on that list. And now you're going to have to not only test your products into compliance through requiring private analytical lab packages to be submitted to the FDA to determine the disposition of your product, and whether or not you're going to receive a may proceed notice from FDA, or they're going to refuse that product's entry. But I think that the FDA's focus on seafood, because I mean, we do import, the lion's share of our seafood into the United States. I believe the number right now ranges anywhere between 65 and 90%, and it has been that way for a very long time. Our dependence on imported seafood is going to force FDA to continue pressing the buttons, and challenging importers, challenging processors overseas. But that's really just a snapshot. What's occurring through those audits. There's very little product in comparison to what we import that's actually inspected by FDA. There's compliance programs like they have at U.S. Department of Commerce, and they have compliance programs through third-party audits. But really, those are just a function of the competency of those officers involved with that specific entry, or specific day that facility was being audited, and their ability to audit and inspect those products correctly using the correct methodologies. So it's kind of I think that there's a lot of seafood exporters that are rolling the dice and thinking that, what are the chances that we're going to get an enforcement action taken on us? There's a lot of packers that are disgruntled. They're saying, hey, we're sourcing the same raw material from the same fishery, but we're on import alert, and the guy next door isn't on import alert, and that's just not fair. And I agree with them. It doesn't make any sense. Unless the processing plant, it isn't taking those corrective or isn't implementing real controls. I mean, that's a serious concern. So,
Julio, I want to, as we conclude, I mean, you had a very interesting point that, the industry is fragmented. I mean, there are independent fishery concerns that are not under your control that play a role in the compliance.
Exactly.
And so how do you think, what would be the next step to try to get a uniform base level of compliance along the lines of what Scott has been talking about for the last 15 minutes with respect to FDA compliance?
Yes, well, as Scott mentioned, one of the main goals of the FDA is traceability. And we have been working on that for a few years now, by collecting or having a database of names, vessels, type of fishing, and even the size of the net in the case they use nets. So we have been collecting that, and we have a database, and we try to enforce sort of some kind of manipulations that the vessel should have over the boat, or the captain have to enforce those kind of, let's say, behaviors. And that's something that we have been doing right now. Uh, it's not easy, but I think it's working. I think it's working, and basically that's it. That's our main goal right now. Just collecting information and try to the vessels that comply with our requirements, which will be the requirements that the FDA is going to enforce on us.
Hmm.
Basically, that's
Exactly.
yeah. Something that I want to say about what Scott says about the all the compliance and all the new enforcements that the FDA is doing. Base Sometimes a lot of time is just documentation, detailed documentations. And you said, as Scott says, by rolling the dice. Yes, a lot of companies are rolling the dice, but if you step forward and just try to get informed and do your homework and comply with all the documentation that the FDA is asking, I think it's not going to be an issue for anybody.
Right.
And 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 that's the main problem. The main problem is information and doing the homework. That's the main thing there.
Yeah. Seems to me a little education may be part of it too, trying to bring
Education.
the
Yes.
experts who are on a daily basis, working with FDA and in the field with these issues to the players in Panama to educate them about exactly what they need to do. So it's an orderly process and people don't get overwhelmed, because they have someone who has a lot of empirical and everyday experience with what really matters and can be efficient with it. I mean, these types of educational projects come with a cost, right? So efficiency and working with someone with experience is very important.
Exactly. And then I think that you make a point, very interesting point, Anthony. Uh, I don't know for a fact. I mean, I know that the law of the FDA, but the FDA, as Scott mentioned, every time is pushing their limits. So probably I'm updated already on the new regulations, and me as a manager of the processing plant, if we can get a tool or an office that can provide with that kind of service. And I know the problem here is that people doesn't know that this kind of office exists.
Hmm.
And usually they start exporting with whatever they know 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And obviously the law already changed. I remember that I used to log in the FDA web page and make my prior notice and ship out the product. Probably that that system of that environment or is already gone, or is changed already.
It's changing, yeah. The ACE system, automated commercial environment, it's evolving, and it's evolving with different types of software. And there's different partner government agencies that have access to the information that you're placing into that system, especially if the product is covered under the Seafood Import Monitoring Program, which is covered by the National Marine Fisheries Service, which right now I believe it's only 13 species, but they're looking to expand
Right.
that number of different species that are covered under that program. So yeah, there's certain number of permits that are associated specific to the species that you're exporting to the United States, and so there's certain details on the importer that needs to be there, and HTS codes and area information and the message set that's being supplied for SIMP. But then there's also a set of chain of custody documentation that needs to be there. The importer, the international fisheries trade permit holder here in the United States has to maintain a full set of documentation that doesn't need to be uploaded, but it needs to be here in the event that NOAA or National Marine Fisheries Service requests an audit of that product. So,
Yeah.
devil's in the details is correct.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to end it. And I promised Scott that I wouldn't keep him here over an hour. But I want to thank both of you for your time. Scott, your knowledge is incredible and without limit. And Julio, it's been really important, your insights with respect to the industry here in Panama. Maybe we can do a follow-up and go into some of these issues more in depth at a later date, maybe next month. But thank you so much to both of you guys, and take care. And until the next time.
Nice to meet you, Julio, and thanks, Anthony.
Nice to meet you, Scott.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.